The sports show, every now and then we like to get one of the greats of the media world in, and John Casey is exactly that case. Always great to see you, mate. One of the Olympic commentators, loves the SANFL, around the NBL. A lot happening in sport at the moment.
Sure is. Thanks for having me. Great to see Britt here as well. And, well, look, I'm coming off the back of Michael Aish and Isaac Humphries. I think you've got the talent out of the way early. And but great to have them on board. Really interested to see what Michael Aish is doing at the moment. He's a champion and teaching kids. It's great to see people putting back in.
I mean, let's stick with the SANFL for a moment. Glenelg, of course, had an unbelievable year this year. You commentated all the games. Looked like they were the team to beat. Then they got the Wobblers against Port Adelaide in the last game. Barely scraped through. Then met the Eagles, of course, in the final. We know the result there. Were you surprised by the margin?
I was, yeah. You have to say that. You know, there were 17 straight wins for the Tigers, and then the finals didn't go their way. Full credit to the Eagles. They were the better team on the day, and you know, they have admitted that. Glenelg have done their review, and they just weren't there on the day, but they didn't fire on the day. They were the highest scoring team in the competition, and they kicked 4 goals. Yep. They kicked 2 of the first 3. At the 12-minute mark of the first quarter, they had 2 goals. They kicked another 2 for the rest of the game. It was Glenelg's lowest scoring game in 8 years. Just didn't turn up on the day for whatever reason, but take nothing away from the Eagles. They were elite, and Jade Sheedy is proving what a good coach he is.
It's the second time he's done it in a grand final. Been able to shut a team down, so he's got a little bit of magic about him. There was some talk, Britt broke a story a couple of weeks ago that St Kilda were talking to him, and they definitely were.
They were, yeah.
So, but he decided to stay.
Which is great.
Yeah, I reckon he's got maybe a year, maybe 2 at best before. I mean, he's got a business here, family here, spoke to him, so he's not in a hurry to leave. No. So we may be lucky to keep him here in the SANFL for an extended time.
I think we will, and that's great for the competition because he has his own business and his family, originally from Mildura, so he's a country boy. And who wants to go and be an assistant coach when you don't get a lot of say? And I've spoken to people who've been in that assistant coach's role, and they are about picking up cones and giving advice, but not really having a say. And he runs his team, and he does it very well. So I'm glad he's staying. It's great for the competition, and he's obviously an elite coach. But unless someone was prepared to offer him the head coach's role, why would he leave? You look at what Michael Godden did at the Eagles and then went to an assistant coach's role at Adelaide. And I think once you've been a coach and you've been there and done that, it would be hard to take a lesser role when you've got so much success and enthusiasm, and Jade Sheedy's just done it all.
Mate, I want to ask you about, there was an article written this week about the SANFL, 40 players leaving and going to the country, and then I try to do the sums on it. So there's 10 clubs, if we count the Crows and Port, in the SANFL. There's 8 or 9 players leaving from one club, which means there's only probably 3 leaving on average from each club, which is not much.
No.
That's kind of happened over the journey. The question would be more about why are so many leaving one club?
Well, I think there's a lot of factors at play here, and we've spoken about this as well. I spoke yesterday with Bryce Gibbs, who's re-signed with South Adelaide, which is fantastic news for the SANFL, and I said, should we be concerned? And his thought process was that, yes, every now and again you'll have a team who loses a lot of players in a season. But as you say, the other clubs haven't lost a lot. So, yes, we're losing some players. Yes, the salary cap being reduced to $200,000 is a factor, and the players can earn more money elsewhere. You're also asking players to take a pay cut, but they also have to then still maintain themselves and training and the middle of winter, and you know, you have to put your life on hold for the entire season. So I'm not surprised that players are leaving, but I think this year it's been exaggerated a little by what's happened at Norwood, where there's 10, 11 players that have left. But I don't think there's any hidden agenda there. I don't think it's got anything to do with the structure or the lack of success in terms of not making the grand final or getting the premiership. Or I think Jade Rawlings has been a terrific coach and lifting the standards there as well. So I'm not too concerned about it. It just gives an opportunity for the juniors to come through, and we've got the best junior in the country, and Jason Horne-Francis, who's been through this year. And there are a couple of others that are coming through on the scene as well who will get an opportunity, and I think that's the great success of the SANFL. It is the best competition outside the AFL, and it's going to attract players from interstate, fringe AFL players. It's going to attract juniors as a pathway to get to the AFL if that's where they're hoping to get.
Do you think the level of commitment needed to play at that level, and they're obviously not being compensated appropriately, do you think that's the main reason why they're chasing the money into the country league?
I think so. It comes down to a question of, is this worth my while? And I've done this for a long time. You look at the experienced players like Mitch Grigg, use him as an example. Now, there's a man who's been to the AFL, had success in the SANFL, and now he's got a young family. Paul Puopolo's another one where, been there, done that. Do I really want to commit myself when now I want to wind down my sporting career and let my family get what they deserve and, sort of repay them for all the support that they've given you? I think that's a lot of it. And yes, the money isn't there at the moment, but I don't think that's necessarily going to mean that it's going to be a continual slide, because there will be people who are interested in playing on and for various reasons. But it's sad to lose the big names that we've got, and but I don't think it's as bad as people are trying to make it out to be. The SANFL is still very healthy. We had, I think, 600,000 people watch the finals on Channel 7. Enormous success, and the crowd could have been bigger if not for COVID. It's still the best competition outside the AFL.
And I agree with you, Case. My sister lives in Melbourne, so she watched it, and she said a lot of people were watching it over there, so it was placed perfectly through that COVID period for the big numbers. I mean, let's switch over to basketball, because you're the number one commentator on basketball here in Australia, mate. Ben Simmons, what do you make of the mess?
Look, unfortunate for both Ben Simmons and the Philadelphia 76ers. Now, I think Ben may have been poorly advised through this, and now they're both paying the penalty. He doesn't want to be there. They don't want him to be there. But no one is prepared to take Ben because he's on $140 million a year for the next 4 years. And the other teams know they want to separate, so they're in the wings saying, well, we'll take him, but at our price, not his price, not your price. So now they're stuck with one another. It's been handled terribly. And I said at the time when Ben was roundly criticised by the coach and by Joel Embiid when they lost in the playoffs, they threw him under the bus. They said basically, well, it's Ben's fault.
Yep.
And Ben said, well, if that's the way it is, well, I'm out of here. And I fully agree. I would have been out of there before that. I would have, if I was Ben Simmons. I'm disappointed he didn't go to the Olympics. That would have helped. But obviously they're not going to come to terms anytime soon. So it's just a really sad state of affairs, because Ben Simmons is elite. He's been an NBA All-Star. You know how good a talent he is, Phil. And it's just taking the gloss a little bit off what Josh Giddey's doing at the moment, because Josh Giddey is tearing it up there, and a lot of the focus is on Ben Simmons, the other Australian. And right now, Josh Giddey, what an amazing start to his career. 19 points, 8 rebounds, 7 assists, 4 steals this week in a game. Playing 30 minutes, starting role.
And loving it.
And loving it, and doing us proud. And that's why he was taken number 6. A lot of people said number 6, that's a little bit high for Josh Giddey. Now they're saying, well, hang on, maybe number 6 was a bargain.
I think everyone's so quick to criticise players, and it takes away from them playing, and they're almost attacking them as people. With your job in the media, is it really hard to, I guess, maybe get caught up in jumping on that bandwagon of criticising rather than focusing on the athletes that are doing so well, and not taking away from their performances just because there's someone of high profile getting a lot of media attention? Do you find that hard?
Not at all. It's a really good question, and I'm lucky in the sense that I never had a career of any note in terms of sport, so I don't feel in a position that I can criticise anyone. And my role as the play-by-play commentator is to have my co-commentator who's been there, done that, played, coached. I say, Phil, what do you make of that? And because people would like to hear what Phil's got to think about. They're not necessarily, you know, care what I have to think about it, and that's fine because I haven't played at the elite level. But that's my job, is to steer the conversation toward the expert. And I don't get involved in that at all. To me, everything that I look at, the glass is half full. And rather than half empty, because those guys are out there doing something I wish I could have the ability to be able to do. So even the poor players are fantastic players to me. If you're having a bad day, you're having a much better day than I've ever had on the court.
And I'd love to know, you've called some really high-profile races as well as games. What's been your favourite in your history of your career?
Oh, wow, that's a really good question. I haven't been asked that one before.
Well, we talk a lot about athletes, and I'd love to know a little bit about you.
Yeah, oh, thank you. Look, I have done, I'm lucky enough to do sprinting, athletics, swimming, as well as the other sports that I do on a regular basis. One thing that does always stick in my mind, I have to say, is Susie Moroney swimming the English Channel. Because I was on the boat with her swimming the English Channel, and it wasn't about the speed, obviously, it's more about the endurance. And Des Renford, the great legend of Australian distance swimming, was in the boat with me. Her mum was in the boat with me, and Susie's brother was in the boat, and there was me and my cameraman. And what she put herself through to this day is just seared in my brain. I'll never forget what she put herself through, how tough it was, how brave she was. To actually swim the English Channel. I know it's been in the news recently with a record breaking.
43. Chloe's done it 43
times.
Yeah.
Well, the day that Susie Moroney, we left Dover, she was going to swim across and back. And she swam and got to Cape Grenade on the other side, and she had to get out of the water because she was spent. She was in the water at one stage begging with her support crew to take her out of the water. She said, I've had enough, I can't do this. She's drinking red cordial, chocolate biscuits that they're passing to her on a net, and she's throwing up most of this. And she was delirious, and I was thinking, oh, please, we need to get her out of the water. I was concerned for her safety, and they kept on pushing her and saying, you'll get through this, you'll get your second wind or third or fourth, whatever she got to. But in terms of physical, I guess it's not sporting in the sense, as I say, that it was a speed, but it's endurance, but it's something that I covered that to this day stays with me, that I'll never forget how much an athlete is prepared to put in to actually get the result that they're after.
Was it the current? Was it the current that
Look, it
was the problem? You know, because they talk about trying to judge the currents to get that nice swim, and she had to swim against it. I can remember it saying that that's what messed her up.
Yeah, it was. And look, it's the busiest shipping lane in the world, and there are huge tankers. We can hear the horns in the background, and I turned to the captain of our boat, which was a smaller vessel, and said, how far away do you reckon that is? And he says, too close. And I thought, are they going to see us?
Yes.
And he said, probably not. Well, it was heavy fog when we left. It had been delayed for 2 days because of heavy fog. And eventually we had to go, because if we didn't go that day, then she wasn't going to be able to make the attempt. And so off we went. And as I say, for bravery, for preparation, just an extraordinary performance by Susie Moroney. And as I say, something I'll never forget.
Yeah, mate, they talk a lot about mental toughness. Obviously, she falls fairly heavily into that group. Mate, we're going to run out of time. The NBL season not too far away. Channel 10, free to air, an exciting time. You'll head up that. Mate, are you looking forward to this season any different to any other season for you?
I'm really looking forward to it, because I think the standard of the NBL is at its highest ever, and the WNBL is also, which starts in 5 weeks, is the highest ever standard that we have seen. So I think if you're a basketball fan, even not a 36ers fan per se, that you're set to see the best talent you've ever seen in the NBL and the best talent we've ever had in the WNBL. So it's a lot to look forward to. And I should point out, the Adelaide Lightning, they're going to open the season on December 2. Alana Smith, who's just come off the WNBA season and the Olympics, is going to be a star and make her debut. They've done a really good job of putting a team together that can be competitive. And for the 36ers, I really like CJ Bruton as the new coach. They've got great Australian talent. Mitch McCarron was the hottest free agent in the competition in the off-season, and he's here in Adelaide for 3 years. Isaac Humphries, who we heard from a little earlier. I think I'm more optimistic about the 36ers this season than I was going into last season.
Yeah, I know the owner, Grant Kelly's certainly expecting him to play in the grand final. He's not going to be very happy if they don't. He's certainly invested enough to make sure that happens. Hey, Case, always great to catch up with you, mate. Look forward to hearing your voice in the NBL and the WNBL. Maybe we'll see you at the World Championships in Sydney next year.
Let's hope so.
Let's hope so. Stay with us. Still plenty to come.